Lame excuse, but that was all he could offer. He quickly rounded up his stormtroopers, said a quick sorry, and they all proceeded to vacate the area. Needless to say, I never went back to Fort Hood and was grateful that I wasn't the typical musician. Chapter 3, Xanthelasma. The year, 1992. One particular morning, while washing my face, I noticed a small whitish bump about the size of a large pinhead on the inside corner of my upper left eyelid. My first thought was that somehow the folliculitis, I still didn't know what the skin condition was spreading to my eyes. This seemed different though, as there was no pain associated with the bump. I thought, oh well, something else to keep an eye on, pun intended. I continued with my day-to-day activities, but immediately began to notice that the bump was enlarging. Not only that, but another bump was starting to form directly opposite on my right eyelid. Mercy! What in the world was this? Again, I decided I had best go to a physician to determine the cause. I don't want to demean doctors, but honestly, I hadn't had the best luck getting a correct diagnosis thus far for my skin condition or allergies. This time would prove no exception. The first doctor I went to would not even acknowledge that he saw the white bumps on my eyelids. I guess he just thought I was trying to get some kind of prescription drug or something. A wasted $45 office visit. Again, this was pre-internet, for me anyway, so I was stuck to my own devices to figure this out. I began using all sorts of things to try and dry up the spots. Problem there, of course, the spots were very near my eyes, so I knew I would have to be very careful. Again, I went with a regular blemish cream in hopes they would disintegrate or at least subside in size. After about a month of trying this, the spots, only grew in size. Not only did they grow, they became extremely discolored. A puke yellow color. Lordy, now what? I was already plagued with the extreme acne on my face, folliculitis, so now let's add these huge discolored patches of yellow-filled sacs under my eyes. I felt it was time for some extreme measures. I bought a small soldering iron and decided I would just burn the devils off myself. My first attempt was, naturally, very meek. Burning your skin, much less so close to your eyes, is not a deed for the weak-willed. Even though, I applied some peroxide to the soldering tip and away I went. Whew, really couldn't get very far with that. I did manage to burn the outer layer of the patches, eventually, and peeled away what I thought was a large portion of main tissue. I started on my right eye because due to a childhood fall, I was blind in that eye anyway. My logic was, if I slipped or somehow burned the eyeball itself, at least it wouldn't affect my vision. Once I got through the initial shock of the burning pain, I decided it might even be a good idea for the huge welts on my chin. I began burning those suckers. Before I was through, I resembled someone with extreme chickenpox. At least I had planned this disfiguring operation for a time I didn't have to go work or visit with family for a few days, Labor Day long weekend. But you know what? After the self-mutilation and a few days of healing, it accomplished nothing. Puke yellow patches and welts still just as prominent and sore, but now scabbed over and bleeding. So much for that. After a reasonable amount of time for healing, I decided it was time for another try at a physician to get a diagnosis of my problem. This time, there would be no way that he, the doctor, could deny the existence of the patches under my eyes. I made an appointment with a dermatologist instead of a regular family practice doctor as well. Upon going to the doctor, I was informed that it was a condition named Xanthelasma and unfortunately, there wasn't a cure. Seems that it's cholesterol that has accumulated under the skin and is usually caused by an excessive high bad cholesterol count in the blood. I was prescribed a cholesterol-reducing medicine. He said I could go to a cosmetic surgeon and have them either burned or frozen off, but more than likely, they would return. Not a good outlook, I'm afraid. I told him about the acne, but unfortunately, this was a time when I had very few actual welts. These monsters, at the time, would come and go with abnormal frequency. Not seeing any major evidence, he dismissed my concerns. In that I wasn't eating in a fashion that I felt increased my cholesterol, I determined that it must be the cheap cheroot cigars I was smoking. Smoking. Being a real dummy, I decided it was best to stop those and began smoking cigarettes instead. Now, of course, I'm not endorsing smoking, but, as most people tend to do, I was looking for any excuse to continue it. I felt that with all my pain and suffering battling skin eruptions, disfiguring yellow eye patches and swelling lips, I at least deserved this vice. I just resigned myself to the fact that I would have to live with pockets under my eyes and started using my flesh makeup to try and cover them up. That at least gave me a false sense of security that people wouldn't notice the patches as easily. Chapter 4, Gynecomastia. The year,